Hi, I'm Nikki Lowe, and welcome to the Wisdom for Working Mums podcast show, where I share insights and interviews that support women to combine their family, work, and life in a more successful and sustainable way. Have you ever felt like you need to lean out of your career to manage the juggle as a working mum? That you just can't make the jigsaw puzzle work? Then today's episode is for you. Going back to work after having a baby can be tough. For many women, going back to work full time is financially, emotionally, logistically, and sometimes even physically impossible. So many women end up leaving their jobs and even their careers because they can't find a way to combine their work and motherhood in a sustainable way. And when today's guests, Hannah Hall-Turner and Rachel Maguire, were colleagues at the same company, they were HR directors in a big FTSE 100 company, and they had their babies 6 days apart. It was while they were on maternity leave that they shared their dream to achieve work-life balance with their new family commitments. They didn't want to leave their careers and qualifications that they'd worked so hard for, but they also didn't want to miss out on the precious first with their babies. And I'm imagining if you're listening to this podcast, you can probably relate to that. So they decided to put a business case to their employer to job share. They got it improved and it was a win-win-win. It gave them the work-life balance that they'd hoped for, and the business benefited from retaining their top talent. As a result, Hannah and Rachel felt a duty to shout about the benefits to others, and thank God they did. And they created their Instagram page, The Job Share Pair. And if you've not yet checked it out, please do. You can find a link in the podcast episode notes, which is wisdomforworkingmums.co.uk/62, the number 6 and the number 2. The Job Share Pair is an amazing resource of experience, best practice, useful practical tips to educate and inspire others about the power of job sharing. This passion project for Hannah and Rachel has now turned into their innovative and successful coaching and consulting business. And Hannah and Rachel are joining us today to talk all things job share, and I can't wait to dive into the conversation. In this episode, the Job Share Pair share actually what is job sharing, and they put the case forward about why it should be normalised and actually how we can do that. They talk about the benefits of job sharing, not only for us as working parents, but also for our employers. They talk about actually a lot of the practicalities. They give us tips on how you can propose job sharing to your employer, and also how to set yourself up for success, sharing their job share working principles. It's jam-packed with brilliant insights. I think you're going to love it, and I won't keep you any longer. Let's dive in. So welcome, Rachel and Hannah. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast because I've been following you on Instagram for a while, and I just love what you're putting out into the world.
Oh, thank you so much, Nikki. We're really pleased to be here. Thank you for having us.
So I always start with any of my guests with really their story. I think partly I'm just fascinated by people's stories, but I think yours is really important to set the scene for today. So can you share with us how you came to be the Job Share Pair?
Absolutely. So our story actually starts about 12 years ago when we both joined a large commercial property firm. And we met about 10 years ago when we were both working there. Even though we were in different teams, we immediately got on. We both worked hard, played hard. We had a love of cheese jokes. And at the time, Hannah, was actually based in Manchester, which is where Rachel's from. So a few years later, I moved to London as part of a promotion. And at that point, we worked in the same wider HR team. So we became sort of colleagues through that. And then fast forward a few more years later, and a position became available in my team, which Rachel applied for and obviously got. And so we worked together really, really closely in the same team for about 2 years. Really played to each other's strengths, had a great working relationship, really added value to our clients through that. And about 2 years after that, Rachel was promoted, where then she became a peer to me, so as an HR director. And, even though we didn't work in the same direct team together, we would still bounce ideas off each other as peers. Then fast forward again to 2017. We were at our work's summer party, and we were having a chat, as you do, about life, about work, about everything. And we both very quickly realised that we weren't drinking. It was very early doors for us, for both of us in terms of our pregnancies. But we did confide in each other, and we told each other that we were pregnant. And it was amazing. We were actually due the same month. And at that point, that we started kind of joking about the idea of job sharing. And then our babies, would you believe it? They arrived 6 days within each other. I know. And we met up then on our maternity leave. So on our first maternity leaves, we met up obviously as friends. And we often spoke about the conundrum that we had. So our role pre-maternity leave as HR director was, fast paced. It was challenging. It was long hours. It was pressured. It was, at times really, really deadline heavy. And by the way, that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That really motivated us. And we loved the fact that it was challenged. It was varied. And we loved it. We loved our role. But, post children, we knew that we just couldn't do that. We both had long commutes. We both wanted to have a little bit of time with our children. And so the idea of job sharing really kind of became a reality for us. And so we pitched it to our manager. We spoke to our stakeholders. We had to speak to some of our clients. And actually, we were offered the job share partnership, which is, perfect, but both in my old role and Rachel's old role. So we returned to work in a job share, and we were the only job sharers in that organisation. And it was a large multinational organisation. And so we actually started the Instagram page where we met you, Nikki, as a real tool for us to network with other job sharers, to share best practice. And then that quickly escalated into being a platform to really educate others around job sharing, give others the confidence to go for it, inspire others to, think about job sharing as a way of working. And then, last year, we were both on our second maternity leaves. And during the pandemic, we actually decided to leave the corporate world and follow this passion project of helping others really reach their full potential at work without compromising their home life. And so we set up our business earlier this year, which really assists organisations to embed job sharing within their working culture, providing the HR consultancy for the entire life cycle of a job share, wherever they are in their partnerships. And then we also offer a market leading coaching program for job sharers, their line managers, teams and stakeholders. And so, we've kind of moved from being distant colleagues to now being business partners, which, I'm very, very thankful that I have Rachel.
Oh, and as you're talking, I'm just reflecting on almost how all of the different situations came together. And I think it's a Steve Jobs quote that says you can't join the dots looking forwards, it's only looking backwards. So I'm just thinking, the fact that you work together and then how all of the kind of life events came together in your pregnancies, the fact that you were even in HR and I suppose felt more resourced than probably many to have those conversations, that's enabled you to take this work into the world. And oh my God, how needed it is. So we're obviously today talking about job sharing, but what actually is it? Because I imagine we all hold a perception of what it is or could be, but actually what is job sharing?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Rachel here. So in really simple terms, job sharing is just what it says on the tin, really. So it's the undertaking of a full-time role carried out by two people. And often, you say job sharing to people, they kind of understand the concept, but they don't really know anybody who's doing it. And I guess that's where we come in, as Hannah mentioned, with our Instagram, kind of being loud and proud job sharers, showing the world that job sharing is an option for those looking for flexible working. So typically when you job share, one partner works for the first part of the week. So Hannah would have worked Monday to Wednesday, and then I would work for the Wednesday to Friday. So we had a really key crossover day.
Okay.
A huge difference to job sharing in relation to part-time working is that with job sharing, you have continuity across the week. So if you work part-time, let's say you work Monday to Wednesday, on the Thursday and Friday, you're either checking in on your emails, or you're stressing about work, or you are worried that on the Monday you're coming into an inbox full of emails and you're kind of always chasing your tail. That doesn't exist in job sharing. You know, you truly do get the benefit of a work-life balance, because if I am involved with work on my non-working days, then firstly, it's showing that the job share isn't operating. And also it's really diluting the relationship between me and Hannah, because, it gives the impression that I don't trust what she's doing, that I don't think she's capable enough to cover. So it really forces you away from the business. It forces you to have that break, have that time to kind of recharge, and, really benefit from the fact that, you have time at home with your children, or time at home to do whatever you want to do. Job sharing is not just for working parents or working mums. It's for anybody who wants a balance with a really stretching, progressive career that they don't want to give up on.
I love that. And I think that's so vital. And I think, if anything, the pandemic has taught us that working remotely, working flexibly is possible in, I'm imagining, so many roles that it may never have been even considered before. And I suppose we'll come on to that about, one of the questions I've got that we'll cover later is, are there situations where this doesn't apply? But thank you for kind of being really clear on what that is. And I loved how you described it. And it seems to me that there's more conversations happening around job sharing. And as I was kind of thinking about that question to put to you, I was thinking, is that just because I'm following you on social media and you're doing such a great job of kind of curating conversations around this, which I think you are, by the way. But what's your sense? Is it becoming something that there are more conversations around, or is it still something that needs to be more normalised?
Yeah, I think, as we all know, as you said, Nikki, COVID changed the way most of us worked overnight, and it really did open a door to organisations and individuals thinking, about new ways of working. And it's interesting, during the 15 years prior to COVID, flexible working only really saw a gradual increase. But obviously research is showing that more people will want to work more flexibly post-COVID, which isn't surprising. I think, more people are considering different types of flexible working. I think job sharing is being seen a little more in the news. So there's a bit of a trend at the moment. We're seeing a resurge of the co-CEO, lots of publications around that. I think there's a bit more thought leadership. We are so thankful for you inviting us on the podcast, and there's lots more opportunities for us to be talking about job sharing. And if we are able to turn up the volume on it, that's certainly pleasing for us. And I think as well, lots of organisations are being seen to change their working practices. So a good example is Zurich, who have made the decision recently to, in their recruitment advertising, include the words part-time, flexible working, and job share. And so that's opening. Wow. Exactly. And actually, they've seen some really positive results on the types of applicants that they're getting. So better quality. I think the stat is 30% increase in females applying for roles. So that's helping people think differently as well. I think where we are at the moment is there's a bit of a worry that it's lip service. And we're looking forward to seeing a few examples come off the back of that, but it is early days. So, the more examples we can see, the more we can talk about success stories and where job sharers are making an impact, the more informed people are going to be, and hopefully will want to benefit from this way of working. So I think To answer your point in short, Nikki, I'm sorry, it was quite long-winded, is yes,
No, it's brilliant.
We're definitely getting the opportunity, and we're seeing more people have the opportunity to talk about it. And so, hopefully in 12 months, 18 months down the line, we'll be able to see the examples of where this is hopefully changing mindsets.
Yeah. And it's just making me think about the stats that are coming out about how many, particularly women, but I suppose working parents, have had to or been forced to leave the workforce because of COVID. And I think that's just opened the floodgates on an issue that was there before about how do we kind of keep our foot on the career ladder and continue to climb it once we have children. And I know you posted something on your social media, I think it was yesterday, about childcare costs and how that has such an impact, and just thinking about how job share could really help plug kind of a problem in the system.
That's exactly it, because I think that, businesses may come to us with the challenge of the fact that women, we talk about basically a lot that at mid-management level, where most women are when they're going on maternity leave, kind of they fit half of the pyramid structure of a working practice. And actually, if they don't return to work, then the reason you don't have board diversity is because you don't have the talent pipeline working its way up. So, the challenge of that is that people could, rightly say, oh, it's the cost of childcare. But exactly that point, Nikki, that if you do job share, yes, you take home a pro rata salary, but you also aren't paying for childcare for the other couple of days a week. And actually, that's really beneficial. So certainly for working parents, that's a really key point that we like to raise as an opportunity for businesses to promote job sharing and keeping working parents, particularly in the workforce at that point.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think what I've seen you put out into the world, which I think is so powerful, is you have this unique insight, I think, about you've sat, within large organizational structures as the employer and really looked after, all of the employer piece from a, HR perspective. And you're also the person that was, a working mum that was trying to make this work. So I think you see both sides of this in terms of what the benefits are and potentially what some of the pitfalls are that you need to, as you said, talk through from the life cycle. But let's start with what are the benefits of job sharing, both for us as mothers, but also for our employers?
Yeah, and that's a really key point. Part of our USP is certainly that we have job shared in a senior role, in a senior capacity, but, also worked in HR. So we do understand the critical balance between business and personal preferences. So certainly from an employer's point of view, the retention and attraction of talented individuals is huge. So those who may not be able or may not want to work full time are totally lost out the workforce. So without offering flexibility, organisations are at huge risk of losing key talent and are really short-sighted not to consider the cost implications of recruitment and lost productivity that happens when somebody leaves the organisation. So that's a big one for us. You have the natural benefit of, two minds, one job, two minds. We speak about a lot. Two sets of skills into one role, double the experience, double the black book, double the network, double everything, which gives a real feeling of collaboration and teamwork and offers often creative solutions to problems that you may not get if you were operating alone.
And can I just stop you there, Rachel? Because I think that you say it's the obvious, but I think just hearing that, you're like, oh my God, that is huge.
I know. Do you know what, Nikki? I'm glad you stopped me, because I need to be really careful about my language, because for us, it's so obvious, such a neat, easy solution, but actually, hammering it home to businesses and in a position that they understand is a really key point. So yeah, for us, it's a no-brainer. You get the certainty of coverage in the role. You don't get the Wednesday hump day or the Friday lull of kind of taking it easy, taking your foot off the gas. Because if you've got 3 days to achieve something, you need to get it done. You're not messing around. And something I heard recently, which resonated so strongly with me, Han, and I'm sure that you'll agree, is that, we often have a challenge from managers who say, oh, it's just going to be too much hard work to manage 2 people. But actually, we self-manage each other. We're accountable to each other every single day about what we have achieved. There is no other position where the productivity of my day is going to impact wholeheartedly on somebody else's. And that then means that I work extra hard in order that I don't have to hand over a load to Hannah. So I think that's an important one as well. And you get motivated, productive, really loyal employees committed to the success of the business at large, which is fantastic. Then on the other side, you've got, from an individual point of view, you've got, the work-life balance. You truly switch off on your home days. Your home days could be for any reason, whether it's for childcare or hobbies or whatever that might be. It reduces the opportunity for burnout, and really, and again, in a difference to a part-time position where you may need to take a step back in a more junior role, you can maintain a really challenging, stretching career and a high impact role, and an ability to kind of progress through the business, continually learning from another person. And this is just on a personal level, depending on how you like to operate. I have always loved working in a team, and that's my preferred way of working. And job sharing means that you have a little micro team. I've got a cheerleader on my arm in Hannah, who is always rooting for me, spurring me on, and vice versa with me. So, you can bounce ideas off one another. You've got a huge support from that person at work, an opportunity to learn and develop from them. And yeah, I've always relished teamwork and the dynamic that teamwork offers rather than a standalone role. But I guess the only sadness for us is that because we job share, we only have one day of work a week where we cross over. But we can get over that. It's still worth it.
And again, as you were talking, it was making me think a couple of things, in that a lot of the work that I do with senior execs, with my exec coaching, leadership can be a really lonely place if you're not careful. And I was just thinking, actually, even if you're not a working mum and you needed it for that reason, because as you're saying, this could apply to any role for any reason, that the benefits of that can be huge.
Definitely. Completely agree.
And it's also making me think that I left my corporate career way before I had children, actually, just knowing that I was burning out because I was in a very kind of high performance industry, in a very high performance job. And I could see that I wanted children at some point in the future, and went, do you know what? If I can't make this work now, there's no way I'm going to make it work when I'm a mum. And I'm just thinking, all those years ago, something like this, I could see would have a massive impact as well. I'm sorry, Hannah, I interrupted. You were going to say something then.
No, all I was going to say is, some leadership roles these days are huge roles, and it isn't, they can be lonely, as you say, but equally, you just might need a second person to fulfill that role as well.
Another thing, can I just add there? This is what we do, Nikki. See, we finish each other's sentences. But, another huge part that we don't talk about enough, and actually, Han, this is giving me an idea for our social media, is, the role modeling opportunity that this allows for other people. And exactly to your point, Nikki, before you were a mum, you're kind of looking around and thinking, how am I going to make this work? Even when my life is turned upside down in the future. And actually, by having role models who are loud and proud job sharers in the organisation saying, you can make this work, there are opportunities for you here, is such a powerful thing.
Yeah, love that. And also thinking about that, we talk about diversity so much, and about, diversity of thinking, within a role, having that diversity between the two of you, I can see being so powerful as well.
Exactly that. Yeah.
If we get down to some of the practicalities of this, so we've talked about, in theory, there's all of these great things, but what might be some of the potential pitfalls? Like I mentioned earlier, can this work for all jobs and all industries? And what might people need to pay attention to make sure that they can make this a success?
There definitely can be potential pitfalls. It's fair to say, whilst we think that job sharing can provide the kind of, we call it the utopia of work-life balance, you absolutely, as job share partners, need to be committed to making it work. Which, as with any marriage or any relationship, it does need work, it needs time. And so, whilst you may think you'll be doing Monday to Wednesday, 9 until 4:30, or whatever your hours might be, you might need to put in additional hours to prove the partnership, overcome perceptions, particularly if it's a new kind of model in place, which leads me on to the second point, really, where, if job sharing doesn't exist in the organisation, and it is an alien concept in so many businesses still, it can be quite difficult to set up if a model isn't in place. And, that was definitely true of Rachel and myself's partnership. The onus was really on us to make it work, which is fine. And we were obviously committed to do that. But, where it comes to things like recruitment, job design, how you're going to performance manage the job share partnership, it might be quite alien. And so organisations might need a little bit of support in getting the tools for that. And that's kind of where we come in with our consulting side of the business. The other thing to mention is, prior to a job share, you were most likely working full time, had complete ownership about your time, about what you were doing. And now you kind of move into this space where you're trusting your career, you're trusting your work, and something that you're probably immensely proud of with someone else. And so you need to be able to trust your partner to lead on their working days and make decisions on their behalf. And sometimes that can be quite a challenge to step back from. But you need to kind of get some, what we call job share working principles together to help you manage that. And then if, there are going to be times where you disagree with some decisions that might have been made. And you just need to kind of be professional enough, mature enough to deal with it head on behind a closed door. And what we learned really quickly was that we need to be experts in giving each other feedback and receiving that feedback and acting upon it for the success of our partnership. And again, one potential pitfall around that point could be the risk of not handing over or poor communication. The partnership really needs to be in tune, and you need to be obsessed with communication. One of the commercial challenges we get from organisations is the additional cost for that crossover day. And job sharing can work in different forms to kind of match with the organisation's budget and things like that. But typically we advise to have a crossover day, because that's where, to your point, Nikki, you get the value of two minds in one role, two problem solvers in one role. You get that time together to brainstorm. And so we're often challenged with that additional overhead, but we obviously think the advantages far outweigh these. And I think the last point on the pitfalls piece is the culture of the organisation needs to be right. And it needs to be open, it needs to be inclusive, it needs to completely dismiss the idea of flexism, where people are discriminated against because they want to work in a more flexible way. And the line manager needs to be supportive of the job share. So without that, the job share partnership just won't be successful. So, the culture needs to be right to allow it to thrive. I think, to your point, can it work in all jobs and all industries? We think yes. And, we really believe that it can work in most roles in most industries. And we've highlighted it through the examples that we share of job share case studies. We've seen job sharers manage teams of over 1,000 people. We've seen job sharers in really high fee earning transactional roles, administrative roles, technical roles, from engineers, CEOs, recruiters, to teachers, to political leaders. We've kind of seen it working in most roles. I think the civil service it's almost, it's a norm in the civil service. They've got thousands of job sharers, which is quite interesting. And it's great for us because, they've kind of done things like employee engagement surveys that we can look at the stats around. And, you talk to people who work for the civil service, and often they just don't want to leave because they've got opportunities to work flexibly. They've got great family friendly policies. And, to coin the phrase employer of choice, that is what an employer of choice does. So yeah, we think it can work in most roles. We often joke that perhaps an astronaut couldn't job share.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But we do take time and think about it. And then you asked if there's anything that you need to pay particular attention to, and I think there's two things. Firstly, the job share partnership. The couple need to have the same attitude to ownership, responsibility, accountability. The values around this definitely need to be aligned. And then the second point is the partnership need to be obsessed. And I mean it obsessed with being seamless. So, truly focus on watertight handovers, how you represent yourself as one. That's for a job share to be effective. That is so important. So yeah, they're the things that we would recommend.
Brilliant. And again, as you were talking there, Hannah, what was coming to my mind was, do you know what? I can see all of those potential pitfalls, but all of those pitfalls you could actually relate to any job. And what I'm thinking about is the challenges of somebody moving through the leadership pipeline. When somebody becomes an individual contributor to becoming a manager, those are the same challenges. How do you communicate? How do you empower and let go? How do you build trust? How do you manage and, accountability, responsibility? So all of those things are actually, if somebody hasn't yet developed them, they're critical skills that this could, really put under the spotlight to help them develop anyway in their leadership career.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest barrier that we have is that, as I said earlier, job sharing is so alien to so many and yet so simple. And we just need, firstly, organisations to try it, give it a go, because they will prove you wrong. They will prove that it can be successful and it can make commercial business sense. And then secondly, we just need those job sharers to keep shouting about it and help us raise the profile of it.
Yeah. And I like your thing, be loud and proud, because I think, as you say, there can be this kind of flexism that you go, actually, I don't want to talk about it too much because it may impact how people perceive me. And I love that you're going, absolutely not. This is so powerful.
Absolutely.
So in terms of your lessons, your personal lessons through this, what have been some of the biggest lessons for you both in your journey?
Yeah, I guess I would say that, starting out as a job share partnership can be really tough. And especially if you're the first in your organizations, as Hannah and I were, as the kind of trailblazers. There's a lot of kind of working things out, trial and error in terms of what works effectively between the two of you. And then there's also educating the business, because although it sounds simple, there are logistical elements that are going to be new to everybody. So for us, we had a shared vision and an ideal working scenario, and that really helped us to focus on what we were trying to achieve. So I think just generally, kind of giving yourself a break when you return to work and knowing that working in a different role or different capacity is going to be a learning curve. I guess I just wish that we'd been given the support that we now offer to our clients from day one, because it just means that you are set up for success and everybody benefits from your increased output. And just relating to our relationship, our work marriage, I think that some people can be really put off by the great dynamic that Hannah and I have, because we do have fantastic chemistry. We're hugely respectful of one another's boundaries, and job sharing, is going to be for life for us, hopefully. but you can find your Hannah, is what I want to tell people. There are so many people out there who will be a fantastic work partner for you. And I just want to make it clear that, a lot of people don't know their job share partners before they start job sharing, and your dynamic can really grow over time. So if it is something you're interested in, do reach out to your network and see if there are others who you may have worked with in the past, or, that somehow who may want to job share with you as well.
Love that. It's almost like finding your job share soulmate.
Yeah.
Work wives for life.
Yeah.
Hashtag find your Hannah.
That's a new one. I like that one. I think from my perspective, you as a job share partnership, you need to be open to challenge, always present as a united front. And, it's new to you probably as job share partners, but don't forget, it's also new to your team, your stakeholders, your clients, your manager. And I'm going to give an example, if that's okay, Nikki, to kind of give this a bit more reality. So we had an example of a case that we were working on where the stakeholder, thought that because of the fact that we job shared, something had slipped through the cracks. And one of us hadn't acted on something that we were supposed to have done. And I remember it so clearly. I was sitting at my desk. And we had it was quite an open plan office. I had my team around me. Behind me was where the managing director sat, the COO sat. So I was around some senior people as well. And he came to my desk and in front of all of those people started ranting at me, saying, something's not right. You've not done this, and it's all because you've not handed it over properly and because you job share. And so I took him into a room, meeting room. I listened to what was wrong. Heard him out, explained my side of the situation was that, nothing had been handed over to me. I explained the process that we go through to hand over, which was thorough, is watertight. And I said, it's Rachel's day off today, but we've got an agreement where if something like this happens, I can give her a call. And so I gave Rachel a call, and she hadn't had anything in her inbox to act upon. And so I immediately went back to him. And, we were both a little bit, I think at the time, quite upset that we thought something had slipped through the net. And we were also a bit worried because, from his perspective, he was really angry about this. And then 5 minutes later, I got an email from the same person saying that the email for us to act upon was currently sitting in his drafts. And so I made him come back to my desk and tell me loudly at my desk that was a scenario, because he couldn't hide behind an email. There was a real potential there for Rachel and myself to lose credibility around our job share partnership. So I made him come and speak loudly to me. And luckily we got it sorted. But I think the thing that we really learned from that experience was, whatever happens, you will only keep your credibility if you are a united front. Never go behind each other's backs. Always, we always talk about this, actually. We accept praise together, and we take the constructive feedback together as well. And we work on that as a partnership. And so, that's an example that I will always remember, I think.
Oh, well,
hopefully he will too.
Well. And I think it is, I'm hearing you talked about, you're obsessed with communication, you're obsessed with having that united front and all of the kind of work that will have gone on behind the background, which is what you powerfully help your clients with to make sure it's as robust as it possibly can be. Yeah. So if there's just one thing that you hope that a working mum who's listening to this podcast takes away, what would you want that to be?
I think I would say that, motherhood is so new, obviously, to everybody at the beginning, and it's okay to have returned to work with a reset on your priorities. It's natural, it's to be expected, and you shouldn't let that be an additional element which may knock your confidence when you return. And, we're certainly not here to say that everybody should be working mums, and we have the utmost respect for stay-at-home mums because it's the hardest job in the world, as we all know. But personally, working gives me something. It gives me a bit of fire that's mine to strive towards, and I love that. So if you're feeling burnt out and you know that flexible options are available, then for us, in its truest sense, job sharing has really allowed us the perfect balance of home and life, work and home life.
Yeah. And I, just wanted to thank you both for championing this, because I think you're going to be opening up possibilities for people that this may not have even occurred to them. And if it had, they wouldn't have a clue how to go about it. So I'm really excited to see the work that you're going to go on to do. So how can people find out more about you and your work?
We are on Instagram, so we post really frequently, as Hannah mentioned, about, general best practice. We post about job sharing in the news. We really want to raise the profile of other job sharers and make it an accessible option to everybody. So look us up on the social media handle, the Job Share Pair. And we have a Facebook group called Job Sharers Unite. So the aim of that group is really just to create a bit of a community for anybody who's in a job share, who's got questions around it or struggling with something, or any prospective job sharers who would love to find a job share partner in a really organic way. Then we're over on there. So that's Job Sharers Unite on Facebook. And we just have general kind of funnies and things like reels on Instagram as well. We're on LinkedIn. So we're kind of all over the social media side with a different audience for both. But if you're interested in kind of learning more about our services, how you can work with us, how we can work with your organisation, then you'll find everything you need to know on our website, or you can email us on hello@thejobsharepair.com. But in a general sense, Nikki, I would just say that we are so incredibly passionate about job sharing as a route back into work for mums who are struggling to find a balance. And if we can do anything to kind of help progress the agenda and help other mums like us who, frankly, if we weren't able to go back to work in a flexible way, we would have left the workforce. And we are, really ambitious, driven, talented women who kind of want to fly the flag for others and want to make flexible working an option for others. So if we can help you, please just drop us a message. We'd love to kind of connect with you and see how we can help.
Amazing. And I encourage people to go and check out your Instagram, because you are rocking your social media. Just, even if somebody isn't interested in particularly job sharing at the moment, but are a working mum, just that alone is worth it. But the stuff you're putting out about job share is incredible. And as I said, thank you for sharing your expertise and experience with the world. I think it's going to make a huge difference.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about our absolute favourite topic.
Well, I know it's been a pleasure, and thank you both. If you've enjoyed this episode of Wisdom for Working Mums, please share it on social media and with your friends and family. I'd love to connect with you too. So if you head over to wisdomforworkingmums.co.uk, you'll find a link on how to do this. And if you love the show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review and subscribe. You'll be helping another working mum find this resource too. Thanks so much for listening.